Okay, imagine this, right? You wake up from a coma after like a really bad injury. You can't even walk straight.
Wow.
How would you start to rebuild your life?
Yeah.
It's a pretty intense thought, right?
Mm.
And that's actually kind of the starting point for today's deep dive. We're going to be talking about the power of these tiny changes, and we're going to be using James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, as our guide.
Right.
You guys sent in some excerpts, and we're going to help you pull out all of the good stuff.
Absolutely. And I think it's amazing how James Clear uses his own story to illustrate this whole concept, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he went from this really devastating baseball injury in high school, couldn't even walk straight, like you said, and he was able to, like, become an academic All-American.
Yeah, it really makes you think, like, what could you do if you, like, had that kind of dedication to these small changes that happen, every single day?
Yeah, it's a perfect example of, what he calls the compounding effect of tiny gains.
Yeah.
And he uses that analogy of a plane taking off, right? Mm-hmm.
Like, a tiny change in direction when you first take off can lead to a totally different destination, thousands of miles away.
Yeah, totally. So, okay, so how do we apply this to our lives?
Right.
I mean, most of us are not, training to be athletes or recovering from a coma. So, like, what does this look like day to day?
I think it's about recognizing that even choices that seem small, they seem insignificant. If you repeat them every day, they can have a massive impact on where you end up.
Oh, okay.
So think about something like your personal finances.
Okay, yeah, that's something we can all relate to.
Yeah, spending just a little less than you earn each month, that might seem like a drop in the bucket in the moment.
Right.
But if you do that consistently over the years, it can mean like a huge difference between struggling and really thriving.
Yeah, so it's like not about those drastic changes overnight, right?
Right.
It's more about like finding these habits that you can stick with.
Exactly.
And that will eventually kind of lead to that success you're looking for.
Exactly.
And actually, Clear kind of pushes back on this whole traditional idea of like just focusing on the goal, right?
He does. He says goals are important, for sure. They give you a destination. But what really drives lasting change is the system, the daily habits that actually get you there.
Okay, so it's more like, not just obsessing over the end result,
Yeah.
but really focusing on building like a system of these good habits that kind of take you there naturally.
Exactly.
What's the danger of just like focusing on the goal, though?
Well, I think it can create this kind of like all or nothing mentality.
Right, yeah.
If we don't hit that goal right away, it's easy to get discouraged and just give up, right?
Totally.
But if we're focused on the system, on making those small, consistent changes, we're not going to get derailed so easily when we have setbacks.
Yeah, it's like enjoying the journey, not just, focusing on getting to the destination.
Totally.
So it sounds like, to really make this work, we need to understand like how these habits actually function in the first place.
Absolutely.
Like what's the science behind it?
Well, Clear breaks down the science of habit formation into 4 stages. There's a cue, there's a craving, there's a response, and there's a reward. It's kind of like a feedback loop.
Okay, yeah, walk me through that a little bit, the feedback loop.
All right. Think of something as simple as checking your phone. Okay? The cue is you see your phone light up, you get a notification.
Uh-huh.
That triggers a craving, right? You want to know what that notification is. The response is the action you take. You pick up your phone, you unlock it.
Right.
And then the reward is that feeling of satisfaction. You're informed or you're entertained.
Yeah, totally. But I think for a lot of us, we don't like consciously think about those steps when we check our phones.
Right.
It's almost like automatic, right?
Yeah. That's kind of the tricky thing. Most of our habits, they operate kind of on autopilot.
Okay.
Below the level of conscious awareness.
So how do we break free of that?
Well, Clear suggests this tool. He calls it the habits scorecard. It's basically this really simple exercise, but it's powerful. You track your daily habits. You just become more aware of your automatic behavior.
This is where he borrows that idea from the Japanese railway conductors, right? I love that.
They use this method called pointing and calling. It's like they literally point and call out every action they take, even the really routine ones.
Yeah.
It seems a little silly, but it dramatically reduces errors and keeps them focused.
So it's almost like adding this layer of like conscious awareness to these actions that we just normally do without even thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can see how that could be a really useful tool. Okay, so we're aware of our habits. Like, how do we actually start changing them? I know for me, I've tried to break bad habits and it's hard.
Yeah, it's tough. Well, one of Clear's big ideas is the importance of environment design.
Okay.
Our surroundings shape our behavior way more than we realize. Think about it. Like, how often do you grab a snack just because it's sitting out on the counter?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah,
Out of sight, out of mind, right?
exactly. So, to build better habits, we have to make the cues for those habits obvious. Keep healthy snacks in easy reach. Put your gym bag by the door,
Yeah, yeah.
leave your book on your pillow. Make the action you want to take the easiest, most obvious choice.
So you're not even like giving yourself a chance to like decide not to. It's just like right there.
Right.
I think Clear even talks about that in his own life, right?
Yeah, he used to work from his couch,
Uh-huh.
and it was always a battle to separate like work time from relaxing time.
Right.
Then he got a dedicated office, made it so much easier to just turn off work mode at the end of the day.
It's almost like your environment can either work against you or it can work for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's not just the physical environment, the social environment plays a huge role too.
Oh, right. And he kind of breaks it down into those three groups,
Yeah.
right? The close, the many, and the powerful.
Exactly. It's about recognizing how the people we're around, the cultural norms of our society, and even people in positions of authority, it's all influencing us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that example he gives about the Polgar sisters, those chess prodigies.
Right. Their father, he was totally believed in deliberate practice, created this chess-obsessed environment for his daughters. All three of them became like world-class chess players.
Yeah, it's wild.
It makes you think, what kind of environment are you creating for yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, so we've talked about the power of these tiny gains, shifting our focus from like the goal to the systems.
Yeah.
We've talked about those 4 stages of a habit, how important awareness is, environment design, and then social influence.
Right.
It feels like we've like laid out a pretty solid foundation
We have.
for understanding these mechanics of habits.
Yeah.
But how do we actually go from like knowing this
Yeah.
to actually putting it into practice?
Yeah, it really feels like we've got this blueprint, right?
For building these better habits. But, I think we can all relate to that feeling of like, just because you know something
Right.
doesn't mean you're actually going to do it.
Absolutely. And that's where Clear's 4th law of behavior change comes in, right?
Okay.
Make it satisfying. We're way more likely to do something again if it feels good.
Yeah.
If we get some kind of reward.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. But how do we make those good habits? The ones that, maybe you don't see the payoff for a while.
Right.
How do we make those feel good in the moment?
Well, Clear talks about something called temptation bundling.
Okay.
It's basically like pairing something you want to do with something you need to do.
Okay.
So like maybe you only let yourself watch your favorite TV show while you're on the treadmill.
So you're basically like tricking your brain into like associating the thing you don't really want to do with something you enjoy.
Exactly. You got it.
I actually do that with like listening to podcasts while I'm cleaning.
There you go. See, you're already doing it. He also suggests, try to join a culture where the behavior you want is already the norm.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like if everybody around you is going for a run after work, it doesn't feel like,
Right.
like a chore. It's just like what you do.
It's just part of the routine. Exactly.
Yeah.
Social influence is huge. But even with all the motivation in the world, sometimes, it's still hard to do the thing.
Oh, yeah. Especially at the beginning. It's like you're pushing this giant boulder up a hill,
It can feel that way, and that's where the 3rd law of behavior change comes in. Make it easy.
Oh, okay.
The easier it is to do, the more likely you are to do it.
Oh, this sounds like a philosophy I can get behind. I'm all about making things easier, especially when it comes to self-improvement.
Well, you're in luck because this is where the 2-minute rule that we were talking about earlier comes in. Clear says when you're starting a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do.
2 minutes. Really?
Yeah.
That almost seems too simple.
I know. That's the beauty of it. By making it so easy to start, you're way more likely to actually start, right? So instead of like trying to run a marathon on day 1, you just focus on putting on your running shoes.
Okay, so you're not even like thinking about the big goal. It's just like that tiny first step.
Just that tiny first step. Exactly. And once you've started, you're much more likely to keep going.
Right. Yeah, you kind of get that momentum.
You got it. And another way to make it easy is by priming your environment.
Oh, right. We talked about that, like, keeping those healthy snacks out and visible,
Yeah.
having your workout clothes ready to go.
Exactly. It's all about removing as much friction as possible.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So we've got make it satisfying, we've got make it easy.
Uh-huh.
But how do we make sure that these habits, like, actually stick?
Right. That's where Clear's first and second laws come in. Make it obvious and make it attractive.
Okay. Yep.
So the first law, make it obvious, it's all about awareness, right?
Mm-hmm.
We already talked about the habits scorecard as a way to kind of, bring those unconscious behaviors to the surface.
Yeah, it's like shining a light on those autopilot actions, so
Exactly.
they can start making conscious choices. But what about making it attractive? Like, some habits are just, they're less fun than others.
They are. Some are definitely less fun than others.
Yeah.
And that's where you got to get a little creative.
Okay.
We talked about temptation bundling, pairing the thing you don't like with something you do. But Clear also says you can reframe your mindset.
What do you mean?
Instead of viewing the habit as a chore, like, focus on the benefits it brings.
Okay.
So if you're trying to work out more, don't think about burning calories,
Right.
Think about how good you feel after, more energy, more confidence.
Yeah.
More resilient.
It's like shifting that focus from the effort to the reward, right?
Yeah,
From the have to the get to.
exactly. That little shift in thinking can be huge.
It really can. Wow, this deep dive has been like packed with really great actionable advice. I mean, we've covered everything from those tiny gains, the power of compounding,
Right.
habit stacking, those 4 laws of behavior change.
Yeah.
It really feels like James Clear has like cracked the code,
He's definitely onto something.
when it comes to habits.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, for you, what was one thing that really stood out to you out of everything we've talked about?
I'm really fascinated by his emphasis on habit tracking.
Yeah.
It seems so simple, right?
Mhm,
But
mhm.
he's convinced that it's like one of the best ways to make a habit stick.
Oh, yeah. I've tried habit tracking in my own life, and there's something about, like, visually seeing that progress. Right? Like seeing those streaks build up on the calendar.
It's so motivating.
It is.
And it actually taps into how our brain works.
Oh, okay.
Every time you check off a box, you get this little hit of dopamine, which makes you want to do it again.
So it's actually kind of like rewiring your brain.
In a way, it is. But it's more than just that. It's also about, like, being accountable to yourself.
Yeah.
And making your progress, like, tangible,
It's like you're making those invisible efforts visible.
You got it. And
Yeah.
that can be, like, so powerful when you're dealing with those habits that take a while to see the payoff.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so before we leave our listeners to think about all this awesome information,
Right.
what is, like, one final thought? One thing to really make them think.
Well, we've talked a lot about the power of these tiny gains,
Uh-huh.
but Clear takes it a step further. He actually suggests that we should fall in love with the boredom of doing it over and over again.
Well, fall in love with boredom. Okay, that sounds a little counterintuitive.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But think about it. We all get excited about those new beginnings, right?
Huh.
That initial burst of motivation when we start something new, but that always fades.
And that's when most people give up, right? It's like
Mhm.
the novelty wears off and then it gets hard.
Exactly. What if, instead of chasing that feeling of motivation, we focused on building systems and environments that make it like almost impossible not to do the good habit?
So it's less about willpower and more about, like, setting yourself up for success.
Exactly. It's about accepting that, to really master something, to achieve a big goal, it takes repetition and it takes consistency.
It's like embracing that slow and steady approach, right?
Yeah.
And trusting that those small actions over time are going to lead to these amazing results.
Absolutely. It's about finding the joy, not just in the destination, but also in the journey itself.
It's like we're changing our whole way of thinking, right?
Yeah.
About how we approach our goals. It's more like patience and acceptance
Right.
and not like this pressure to do it all at once.
Exactly. And recognizing that real growth takes time.
Yeah.
There's no, magic bullet.
So, okay, if our listener is like ready to apply all this, what's one thing they can do like today to start building better habits?
Okay, I would say pick one tiny habit that you want to improve. Something small, manageable.
Like what? Give me an example.
It could be anything. I mean, maybe it's drinking a glass of water first thing when you wake up.
Yeah.
Or going for like a 10-minute walk at lunch.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it's spending like 5 minutes just tidying up before you go to bed.
Okay, so pick that one small habit and then
And that, I would say, use one of the techniques that we've been talking about today.
okay, so like make it obvious, Put a little sticky note on your desk or
Yeah.
whatever.
Or make it attractive. Like, listen to music while you tidy up.
Oh, yeah, pair it with something fun.
Exactly.
Oh,
Or make it easy, break it down into even tinier steps.
oh yeah, right? Like
Huh.
if 10 minutes of walking feels like too much, just do 2 minutes.
Exactly. 2 minutes. You got it. And don't forget about making it satisfying.
Oh, right. Yeah, that was the big one.
Yeah. Track your progress on a calendar,
Yeah.
Maybe set up a little reward for yourself. The point is, like, just try things out and see what works for you.
Yeah, and I think that's really what we've been talking about this whole time, right?
It is.
Like experimenting, seeing what sticks.
Exactly. It's all about finding what works for you.
Yeah. Well, this has been fantastic. I mean, we've covered so much today.
We have.
Those tiny gains, the power of compounding, habit stacking,
Right.
all those 4 laws of behavior change. It feels like James Clear has really given us a solid way to understand our habits and change them, right?
I think so. I think he has. It's been fun unpacking all of this with you.
Yeah, it has. And for you guys listening, remember, you don't have to wait for the perfect time to start.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait for like a burst of motivation.
Right.
You can start small right now and let the power of those small changes transform your life.
Couldn't agree more.
Until next time, keep diving.